Let's now take you back to our top story, which is about India's outreach to the world in the wake of Operation Sindoor. What preceded that was the Pahalgam terror attack, which is why India responded the way it did, targeting epicenters, different bases of terror in not only Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, but also within mainland Pakistan. And thereafter, there was some heat that got raised, which led to the military action being put to a stop after some time when Pakistan reached out. And now we have a situation where India is putting across its stand against terrorism, against sponsorship of state sponsorship of terrorism very strongly across the world, justifying its actions. We're joined to talk about it by our guests, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Indian Consul General in Pakistan, and Professor Swasti Rao is also with us. She's a well-known geopolitical expert with the Jindal School of International Affairs. Good evening to you both. First to you, Ambassador Dayal, what do you make of what India is doing and how it's going about it? It's pretty unprecedented in scale, because we have had delegations being sent out to take India's message out to the world in the past as well, but never in this manner, in these large numbers, to so many countries.
Good evening, and thanks for having me on your show. It's again a delight to be with Professor Swasti Rao. We did a discussion on a similar subject on another channel just about 45 minutes back. And here we are again.
What's the topic of the day?
We are again talking about it because it's such an important topic. As you said, this is the most important topic of the day. You know, India is making a diplomatic outreach to key countries to convey to them very forcefully our message that we will have zero tolerance for terror. Now, it's very significant that this is a delegation which is drawn from across the political spectrum. It has representatives from several political parties. And the message which is going across is that India stands united on this matter, which is vital for our national interest. Now, combating terrorism from Pakistan is something that we have been doing for a long time. Let me recall that when Prime Minister Modi took over for the first term, he invited the then Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, to his swearing-in ceremony. And next year, he paid an unannounced visit, unscheduled visit to Lahore to attend the wedding of Mr. Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter, while Prime Minister was on his way back from Kabul. So he made every gesture possible to show that he wanted good and friendly relations. Now, what happened? Just a week after his visit to Lahore, Pakistan launched the Pathankot terror attack. That was on 2nd January 2015. And then, 2016, sorry. And then a few months later, in September, Pakistan again carried out the Uri terror attack. And then in 2019, the Pulwama attack, and now the Pahalgam attack. So we are absolutely determined that we will not brook any nonsense from Pakistan. And that is why we sent across a very telling message through Operation Sindoor. And we targeted the terrorist camps. And we also made it clear that we had no intention of attacking military targets or targets of economic importance or civilian targets, but we would retaliate if Pakistan escalated. And that's what happened. Pakistan escalated and we retaliated. And the damage that was caused to Pakistan was considerable. However, the propensity of Pakistan to again engage in terrorist activities against us does not remain in any manner diminished. Pakistan has it in its bloodstream, this idea of wanting to carry out terrorist attacks against India. Now, let me mention that the global community somehow thinks that terrorism from Pakistan only threatens India, which is so hugely wrong, because terrorism from Pakistan can be a threat to all countries of the world. In fact, there are so many terrorist attacks which have been carried out, for instance, in Europe, which have Pakistani links. And again, let us not forget, and this is what we have tried to tell the Americans, that the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks, Osama bin Laden, was living in Pakistan for 5 years. He had been given sanctuary by Pakistan, and he was living just a mile away from the National Military Academy of Pakistan in Abbottabad. So Pakistan is a country which has such strong links to terrorism, and therefore there is a great need, in the interests of not just India but the global community, that Pakistan's terrorism should be checked and that steps should be taken to make it sure that Pakistan's capacity to carry out terrorist activities is diminished. And what we need to do is to put political brakes, that is to say, brakes on terrorist organizations which are based in Pakistan, and those organizations plus their leaders have to be put on the UN watch list,
Right.
the UN blacklist, and at the same time, Pakistan has to be put on the grey list of the Financial Action Terror Force, because financing of terrorism from Pakistan has to be stopped. Let me just say one last thing. The IMF recently gave to Pakistan a loan.
Exactly, I wanted to bring that up.
Now, Pakistan has received 24 major IMF loans, plus it has received loans from all across the world. Where does the money go? The world community must ask, how is it that Pakistan is so impoverished when it gets so much of money as international loans? Surely that money is misutilized by the armed forces to train terrorists, arm and abet them, and fund them and send them across to India. And therefore, it is very, very important that organizations like the IMF should put brakes on any further packages to Pakistan. And the loan that was recently approved should not be dispersed, because it is not in anybody's interest, not just India's, but not in the interest of the global community, that Pakistan should continue to have the financial means to back terrorism. So the challenges before our delegation are considerable. They have to convince the people in the countries where they are visiting about the danger of Pakistani terrorism and what their country needs to do also to support India's efforts.
Let me bring in Professor Rao as well. Swasti Rao, let me ask you, because whenever there are two parties that kind of face off, it becomes a case of who's right, who's wrong, and who screams the loudest, who tells their story, their side of the story more effectively. So it's a battle of perception as well. Now, let me ask you, with the example that Ambassador Dayal gave just now of the IMF loan, the next tranche, where the IMF has altered the conditions, made them more stringent as well, after the actions that India took, that Pakistan has already begun to lose the perception battle. And these delegations that are going out in different parts of the world may be the last nail in the coffin.
Well, Gautam, good evening, and it's a pleasure again to see Ambassador Dayal merely after, I think, half an hour it was. But anyway, so I think very quickly to your question, you see there are a couple of things here. Now, India's outreach to countries, if you've seen the list of countries that figure in those 7 groups, okay, you will see that it doesn't contain China, it doesn't contain Turkey, it doesn't contain Azerbaijan, and for a reason. So we are not expecting that these countries that have come out, especially China and Turkey, Azerbaijan is a very small player, of course it has its own scores to settle with India for what we're doing in Armenia, and that's a different thing altogether. But coming back to China and Turkey, we're not even expecting that our explanation is going to help these countries understand the kind of a dirty game that Pakistan plays with us. That's on the one hand. We are trying to reach out not only to IMF, of course, I think that point has been very well elaborated by Ambassador Dayal. So it goes on to show that, yes, diplomatic maneuvering and diplomatic messaging does matter when it comes to these kind of situations. And you did see that after all these outreaches, IMF did tighten and conditions and made them more stringent. That's one. But please also remember that Pakistan has many, many options. Do you know that in 2025, UAE, which is a very close partner to India, in fact, UAE is India's most important preeminent strategic partner in the West Asian region, they have promised Pakistan an additional loan of $1 billion US, and in addition to the $2 billion US already promised. And as we are speaking, I was checking Pakistani media reports that out of all that money, they are now pressurizing the UAE to free up at least 350 million, of that money. So what I'm saying is that this problem of Pakistan traveling across the world, asking them for money, is something which is not just an IMF problem per se. It is also extending beyond IMF and to other players. And I just gave you one example, and this is a country with whom we have excellent ties, right? So the reason why I'm kind of elaborating upon this is to actually acquaint you with the complexity of the matter. We cannot expect the international community to overnight isolate Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan also serves a lot of geographical interest, a lot of connectivity interest. There is also this entire thing of what happens to Afghanistan, etc., etc. So this entire journey of isolating Pakistan from the international community, or at least apprising the international community of what Pakistan does with that money, is something that is going to take time. And this is a very, very valid, important part of our long-term strategy to isolate Pakistan and to, so that's on the one hand. In the short term, all we can expect is perhaps making things a little more difficult for Pakistan in order to, get these tranches and get these loans. But I'm not sure if we will be able to completely stop it, because please understand that there's one thing that Pakistan has done very successfully over the years, is that Pakistan has positioned itself as a victim of terror itself, terror too. So the basis for Pakistan to get this money is to actually portray itself as a victim and say
taking
that,
advantage of the underdog mindset, it seems.
Of course, yeah. So that's also happening, and all these things actually play into the complexity that we see today. And then ultimately, like I said, that this is nobody is expecting that just by dispatching these delegations, everything is going to be sorted. I mean, India has done dossier diplomacy for many, many years, and India has been criticized for it. I mean, especially Indians have criticized it because us taking our story out to the world and them turning a deaf ear and just continuing with whatever they were doing with Pakistan is something that we have seen. So, like I mentioned, I mean, generally, my posture is that we are alone in this fight, and there is no doubt about that. And we have to do what it takes, okay? And we have done it. We have created a new normal. We have taught Pakistan a lesson. We have told them that if you do a Pahalgam on us, please be prepared for everything. And in fact, we have also revamped our own doctrine, where we have now said that any act of terror is going to be an act of war. Of course, it remains to be seen how this is going to be finally implemented. But what I'm saying is that we have done what it takes. But at the same time, I think this outreach from India's side is also a very clear messaging to show to the rest of the world community, as well as to other Indians, that India's position in the world today is very unique. We are talking about a major country in the Indo-Pacific region, which is soon going to be the world's third largest economy, and with all the other promises that we know the country holds. Now, in that respect, I think a clear messaging needs to be, sent to these foreign partners, and I think that's precisely what India is doing. If you see their profile, you will see that right from very important strategic partners to trading partners to countries that are figuring, in the United Nations Security Council as non-permanent members. So we are making an outreach to everybody. So it's just
because Pakistan itself is a member of the UN Security Council as a non-permanent member for several months, 17 months, I believe. And that is why a lot of these countries have also been chosen. Ambassador there?
As Dr. Rao herself said, this is a beginning, and there are long-term goals which are associated. So if we are also trying to sensitize countries which are not presently members of the UN Security Council but would become after 17 months, then it shows that we have a long-term strategy in mind, which is very, very important. It should not be that we make an effort and then after some time the whole thing gets forgotten. We have to be very, very persistent in regard to these efforts. Now, there are a whole host of issues which the other countries may be anxious to know about. For instance, our decision to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty, or the sort of fake news that was circulating about our planes being downed, or that we had targeted places of worship, etc. So our delegation will have to correctly portray the state of affairs and explain to the countries concerned how we are shaping our policy, what our objectives are, and that while we did not want to hurt the Pakistani people in any way, but at the same time, we have to put a stop to terrorism. So there is a lot that we need to prepare the other countries as regards India's future steps are concerned, because the Prime Minister has made it very clear that Operation Sindoor is an ongoing process. I may add a couple of other very important points also. Most countries act according to their national interests. It is not that when we go and speak to them, they will change their policy or they will begin to take a new line of approach to Pakistan. They will factor in what their interests are. This is so of the United States. It has always taken into account how Pakistan is important for it, what is the sort of role that Pakistan plays in its strategy formulation. And this will continue to happen. But nonetheless, we have to make it clear to all the countries that we are visiting that terrorism from Pakistan is not just something that affects us adversely. It could affect all other countries also in some form or the other, because terrorism always has global interconnection.
Right. Well, we'll have to leave it there at the moment, completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Ambassador Dayal, as well as Professor Rao. I look forward to again connecting with you in the coming days, because there will be plenty of occasion to talk about this very issue. It will remain on top of perhaps all broadcasts, at least where DD India is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us.